We are back. Yes, yes, yes. My traditional 1 2 1 2. Sneaks, rhymes, and life back in the house. Your host, Lionel McDonald. So, yeah, unfortunately, I'm a little under the weather. Um, COVID hasn't gone away. To be perfectly honest with you, I got sick on a trip. So I am in my hotel room. Probably not getting this one till next week, but making the best of my time. A lot of time to reflect, a lot of time to take in a lot of different things. And I'm just keeping it 100, but life goes on. I feel okay. I'm a little nasal, so you get my Q-tip voice today. Um, but today's episode, we're still on the hip hop vibe. We are literally less than 1 month from the 50th birthday slash anniversary of hip hop. So we've been getting a couple joints from Billboard magazine. And although we had 50 best MCs was obviously very compelling in who was on the list, who was not. As I mentioned in the previous episode, that's what started the whole Jim Jones, Pusha T beef. But the one that we are going to talk about today, and I think it's so challenging once I started to go through it, the Billboard's top 50 rap groups. Well, and we'll start at the top, and I was going to only do the top 10, maybe the top 20, but as I started to go through it, it continued to engage me and make me think, and I probably got more to say about the bottom than I have the top. So we're going to get into it. We are going to break it down, give you my own opinion. Please, if you're listening on YouTube, comment, subscribe. If you are listening on Apple or iHeartRadio or Google or Spotify, please subscribe. Please follow us on IG, sneaks underscore rhymes underscore life underscore podcast. You can catch me personally on L underscore MAC42. Also do a few other Instagram accounts based on some personal stuff that Nick's lifting and other joints like that. But let's get into today's topic. Top 50 rap groups. And I just think this is a layup. This is easy. This is not even MCs. This is just top 50 rap groups. Man, I'll give it up to you, Billboard. This was enough was done with top 50 rappers. This opened Pandora's box on a lot of things. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to give you the top five, and let's talk about it. And then you get to ponder, and then I'll give you the top 10, and then we will whip through the top the from 11 to 20, and then I kind of will mix in some highlights once we kind of get to 30. We'll do 21 to 30, I think, as I got it written down, and then we'll kind of talk about the bottom. Okay, so the number one rap group of all time, and I'll put it in this order as it's listed. Um, Now there was I think BET did their own, or The Source did their own, and NWA came out as the greatest hip hop rap group of all time. NWA is not number one on Billboard's list. Outkast is, and you think of the quality and the crossover appeal of Outkast, talent, repping the South, in a time where East and West Coast hip hop went back and forth. If you think of, the contributions of both Dre and Big Boy, and we still would love if they were making music or they get back and do a reunion. Don't think that's ever happening. So let's just dead that right now. But Outkast is number one. The greatest super group of all time, Wu-Tang Clan, is number two. NWA is number three. And from the West, there is no group that is more impactful than NWA. And then we obviously know Wu-Tang changed all of East Coast culture, super groups, talent. It led to, not that movies with rappers in it, because Tupac and many others were Ice Cube, Fresh Prince, go back to, like, there's years of rappers being in music in movies, but it really changed how we saw really hardcore rappers and how they could change and elevate the culture. Like, just look what Meth's doing. Look at, how the RZA is now woven his way into mainstream films, and creating musical soundtracks, and how his impact on the whole Kill Bill series. So Wu-Tang is definitely a force and a piece. Number 4 is Tribe Called Quest. Number 5 is Run DMC. So, and I look at that 5, I really have a hard time anyone arguing that that's not the top 5, because you want to try to slight Run DMC. Run DMC paved the way for the other 4. So Run DMC has to be in the top 5. Run DMC was the one that crossed over. Their culture icons. We're still talking about superstars now because of Run DMC. There was so much racial bias in the 80s. So, and Run DMC kicked those doors down. So Run DMC collaborations with Aerosmith, amongst a lot of others, first rap group to get a freaking endorsement. So Run DMC is in top 5. Tribe Called Quest, and you can make a debate easily. Are they the most consistent? I think if you compare albums, and don't quote me on this, but from my record, they're the only of the top 5 that have 2 5-mic albums. Yeah, maybe in retrospect, Run DMC was given 5 mics, or NWA was given 5 mics for multiple albums, or Outkast. But in my original journey through the source in the 90s, only one group got 2 top 5 out of 5 mic albums, and that would be Tribe Called Quest. So they definitely have a space. I were redoing the list, and I think based on who my favorites are, it would look different. Run DMC would still have 5 because they deserve a spot. NWA would probably be 4. Nah, MWA would be 3 still. Outkast would be 4. Tribe would be 2, and Wu-Tang would be 1. But tough to argue. I think when you talk consistency, maybe from a commercial to a true lyrical point of view, I really have a hard time arguing with Outkast being 1. So can't really debate the top 5. You can shuffle the order, but then the groups. Now let's get into 6 through 10. Public Enemy is 6. Eric B. and Rakim is 7. Salt and Pepper is 8. So it's nice to see the ladies out there. De La is 9, and the Roots are 10. So, so many people in comments were up in arms that Public Enemy, easily could have been in the top 5. Tough to remove any of those other groups. But when you talk about some of my notes here, intelligence, really capturing the emotions of the time, and from Do the Right Thing to Fear of a Black Planet to Nation of Millions to hold us back, Cold Bun Rush the Show, Apocalypse 91, like, jeez, like, they were absolutely incredible for the stamp that they made, and the pressure and the influence they've had in standing up for your people. I think the culture, the world owes Public Enemy a tremendous piece, and Chuck D does not get the kudos or props that he deserves. He is one of the greatest MCs of all time. I don't care how you slice it, because he just is. Eric B. and Rakim, arguably Eric B. did an incredible job as a producer and is slept on as a producer. And Rakim is arguably the greatest MC of all time. In my opinion, top 3, he is right there. And I will keep throwing it out on this podcast. Kendrick is in the conversation for his generation, and not Drake. And although I'm wearing an OVO shirt, so shout out to Drake, but Kendrick is a better MC and a lyricist, and also Nas is in that conversation. So there are seven. Salt and Pepper, they definitely had an impact. They definitely paved the way for so many other people to get on the mic, girl power, and all the things they were able to create. So just like, but think of the crossover hits that they had. Let's talk about sex. Shoot, they went out, they went at Dougie Fresh in the onset. They had a song called Showstopper that went on against Dougie Fresh and and um and Slick Rick, and the show was viewed as misogynistic. So shout out to Salt and Pepper. Me personally, they're not a top 10 group. When I'm comparing some of the other guys that now fall into the teens, and in this whole list, I think the group that gets the most slighted is Gangstar, because Gangstar is not even in the top 20, but we'll get to that in a second. I don't think they're more impactful to me than Mobb Deep. I don't think they're more impactful to me than Naughty by Nature. Those are just a couple examples. You can make a case for Fuji's. Uh, some people will, but Salt and Pepper, you got your spot. You're number 8. De La Soul, multiple albums. Finally, we get to see it on streaming and connect with you in a whole different level, because many of us were just bumping the CDs for the last 10 plus years. And then Roots, one of the most decorated catalogs there is. They've crossed over and been able to be part of late night TV. We've seen Black Thought have his own career. We've seen them kind of do some of their own solo projects like Rizal, and obviously Black Thought is an MC. He's collaborated with so many people. So tough to argue that Roots isn't in the top 10. I think Salt and Pepper is the one for me, would have to come out, and I have to give it to one of those that I already mentioned. So now let's look at 11 through 20. 11, Migos, Grandmaster Flash, and the Furious Five is 12, and they were the true trailblazers that were out there. We may not have KRS-One or Public Enemy or Big Daddy Kane or the Juice Crew or Rakim or EPMD if it wasn't for Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. So let's just put some respect on that name. 13 is Mobb Deep. 14 is Fugees. 15 is Naughty by Nature. 16 is Beastie Boys. 17 is Cypress Hill. 18 is 3-6 Mafia. 19 is G Unit, and to me, that's way too high. Easily Gangstar could have this spot amongst others, and 20 is UGK. So I'm comfortable with most of them. Beastie Boys could be a little bit higher. If you think about these 3 Jewish guys from New York and how they made hip hop fun, and how they made they're creative and really kind of push the boundaries of what hip hop really could sound like it could be. I could easily say it's good that they're in the top 15. They could be a notch higher. Prodigy and Havoc, and rest in peace, the lyrical giant that was like 5'7", 5'6", one Prodigy. And with P behind the boards and also on the mic, and Prodigy at times went behind the boards. 13 for me is just not good enough. They had ultimately a 5 mic album after the Sorcery did it. Hell on Earth is a 4.5. Murder Music is underrated, and it's a 4+. And then some of the underground stuff, the mixtape joints, like far surpasses like a group like Migos, in my opinion. I could easily give them Salt and Pepper spot, although Salt and Pepper, we're talking about the ladies. So I think you got to think of how the list ended up being the way that it is. But if it was my list, they would be in the top 10. But the way the list is written, Salt and Pepper is 8, and I still think it's just too low. I would be comfortable if Mobb Deep was 11 instead of Migos. So let's leave it at that. Salt and Pepper can have their spot. Then you got Cypress Hill, you got 3-6 Mafia. These are all top 20 groups. Cypress Hill with their commercial success, I get it, though they're not one of my favorites. Naughty by Nature was unbelievable. And if you think of the hits, Feel Me Flow, OPP, um, and just some of the things that they did, absolutely, they could easily be a couple spots higher. Um, 3 6 Mafia really brought a whole area of hip hop to life, and so did UGK. So I'm glad they're in the top 20. I know those reasons would say they need to be higher. They probably could be up a spot or two. I think just G Unit, like, and I know 50 was on his run. They had like one really good album. I don't think they even a top 30 group. So I think we could shuffle this thing around. Migos needs to come down. Easy 3 6 and UGK could go up. Mobb Deep needs to go up. Fuji's I didn't even really get into, but commercially, it easily have a case to be in the top 10. Um, I think they're properly placed at around 14, but I think easily a couple guys could jump them. So let's get into the 20s. UGK was 20. Then we go into Bone Thugs, The Locks, Sugar Hill Gang, Dipset is 24, Hot Boys is 25, Hurts My Heart, EPMD is 26, Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince is 27, Ghetto Boys is 28. Here is Gangstar at 29. You were telling me Bone Thugs is better than Gangstar. You're telling me the Locks are better than Gangstar. Come on, dog. Come on. Going back to, you're telling me G-Unit is better than Gangstar? No way. So this is where I have major beef. This is when we had to get into major beef with this list. Clips are 30. Clips ahead of, and I'll give the next some highlights of the next 30. So, it's 31 was BDP. Great to see that they got Hyro on the list. Hyro as a group, I don't know how that weighs really, because I think I would say Souls of Mischief was better than Hyro as a group. Souls of Mischief could have this spot, because 93 Till Infinity arguably to me is one of the 20 favorite albums in my collection. A Plus is one of my favorites. Opio is one of the most underrated. I would say Tajay is like the Busta of the West, and Festo is like the Inspector Deck of hieroglyphics. So that's how I kind of break it down. So there they are. 8 Ball and MGG is 37, too low for me. Slum Village is 39. Little Brother is 41. Pete and CL Smooth is 45. Wow, so low. UGK is 46. Black Star is this is where we kind of, so there's a couple new school groups like City Girls that end up being 48. Black Star is 49 and MOP is 50. So they're on the list. It's great. They're on the list. But I think there's a lot of reshuffling here. So if I look at the 20s, Bone Thugs, you have your thing. People respect you. You're not my cup of tea. I definitely would have taken EPMD higher than you. I would have definitely taken Gangstar higher than you. But because of your commercial success, collaborations, biggie, stuff that you've done on your own, hits, Grammys, all of that stuff, you have your place. Sugar Hill Gang, a legendary group, easily should be 21 just out of respect. Hot Boys, you guys did your thing. Like, let's stop playing. Hot Boys easily could be in the top 20, and we could be kicking someone out of the top 20 because they changed the whole culture of what they did in New Orleans. I already talked about EPMD. First group to win a Grammy, DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. And they're 27. Ghetto Boys, definitely an impact. They're 29. Clips, 2 fire albums. Let's stop playing. Probably right-sided at being at 30. Maybe you need to be a little bit lower, because I would take Pete and CL. I would take Little Brother. I would take Slum Village. I definitely would take BDP. BDP should be in the top 20, if not like 21. So the list is interesting. MOP and Black Star, to me, I love those groups, particularly MOP because of the body of work. Black Star was 2 albums after we got the streaming album last year. and but the quality is high for Black Star on the first album. The streaming album, not everyone loved it. I personally was absolutely feeling it, and I was on Luminary, and I listened to the pod and I listened to the album, and Chappelle was the part of the driving force along with Quali to get uh Yassine back in the booth, aka Most Def. But okay, let's keep Gangstar where or Black Thought or Black Star where they are. Excuse me. MOP probably needs to be a couple notches higher. CL Smooth is arguably one of the most underrated lyricists out there. But they only really had two albums plus an EP, which had a couple songs on Mecca and the Soul Brothers. So you could argue that there. Little Brothers got a little more juice, and that's why they're a few spots higher. So the ones that really bother me, EPMD at 26, Gangstar at 29, BDP at 31. Yeah, probably Bone Thugs is actually too low. I would actually switch Bone Thugs in Cypress Hill, maybe even Bone Thugs in 3-6 Mafia. G Unit is probably the highestly between G Unit and Migos. Those are the two albums that are way too high for where they should fall on this list. Not saying they don't belong on the list, they're just way too high. So that's the breakdown. Tell me what you think. Do you think that's the right order? Do you think Outkast is the number one group? I personally say it's Wu-Tang. Then probably NWA. No, oh, sorry, what did I say? Wu-Tang, Tribe, NWA, Outkast, Run DMC. Right five. My order is different than Billboard's. Billboard's is Outkast, Wu-Tang, NWA, Tribe, Run DMC. Public Enemy is 6. Airbnb and Rakim is 7. Salt and Pepper is on the list representing the ladies. Some people say the Fugees should have that spot. I don't think so. And De La is 9, and The Roots is 10. I think Mobb Deep should be 11, and then we need to shuffle the list a little bit more. But that's the list. Easily Mobb Deep could be 12, and I would be okay if 11 was Grandmaster Flash, because that is the Godfather and gave us so much style and so much influence. And again, they paved the way to what things look like today. BDP and Gangstar are just way too low from their cultural relevance in the 90s and in the 80s, because both of those groups did start in the 80s. So tell me what you think. Appreciate everyone listening. So fun to kind of break down these lists. We're going to get into some sneaker stuff, because I know I gave you my sneaker one. I still have another hip hop one coming up, because we got to give you the July. So number 7 of the 23 till infinity. And I'm running out of spots. I'm down to 6 spots, and there's some great albums. We haven't talked about Snoop. We haven't talked about Midnight Marauders. We obviously have not talked about 36 Chambers. So they got 3 spots. I'm going to keep a surprise and know that you're going to hear a few other ones that got to get mixed in to take up the other 3 spots. But the competition is mad high. So thanks for listening. Appreciate y'all. And we'll catch you all very soon. Deuces.